This is Pharma Forum web editor Nicole Raleigh, and I am on site in Chicago for ASCO 2025. And I have with me here Professor Dr Jason Westin, who is lead of the Lymphoma and Myeloma Service Line at MD Anderson Cancer Center, as well as Director of Lymphoma Clinical Research and Section Chief of Aggressive and Indolent Lymphomas. Pleasure to speak with you.
My pleasure as well.
So today we'll be discussing the launch of the CAR T Vision Coalition, which aims to double the proportion of eligible patients treated with CAR T-cell therapy by 2030. So, Jason, only approximately 2 out of 10 people in the US and 3 out of 10 people in Europe with certain rare advanced blood cancers receive access to CAR T-cell therapy. And the CAR T Vision Coalition, I believe, is aiming to unite stakeholders around the shared ambition that every eligible patient should have the opportunity for cure with CAR T-cell therapy. So perhaps you can firstly describe what CAR T therapy involves.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled to be here to talk about this important initiative today. CAR T-cell therapy is one of the most important, groundbreaking, transformational changes in oncology, in my opinion, in the past few decades. And what we're using is the patient's own immune system to fight against their cancer. We're using the T cells that they have in their body to treat things like infection or other conditions that might have harmed us. Our body protects us against those things by using its own immune system. But the immune system we have often fails to protect us from cancers like lymphomas, leukemias, myelomas, advanced blood cancers. CAR T-cell therapy is taking the immune cells, weaponizing them, and then seeking them after the cancer cells that were hiding in plain sight. And CAR T-cell therapy has been around now for about a decade. It's been approved for a number of hematologic malignancies, and it is now a routine standard of care in many settings. A few years ago at this ASCO annual meeting, we presented data showing that the new second-line standard of care for patients with aggressive lymphomas should be CAR T-cell therapy because it has a proven overall survival advantage over the prior standard of chemo. Yet, despite these major advances in this groundbreaking research, it's still only being used in the small minority of patients that you mentioned.
Thank you for that, Jason. So let's turn now to the coalition and the initial activities of the CAR T Vision Steering Committee and a report have been funded, I believe, by Gilead Sciences and Kite as the inaugural supporter of CAR T Vision. So can you tell us more about the intentions behind the coalition?
Absolutely. So the CAR T-cell Vision project is dealing with what I would consider to be a coordination problem, that we have an agreement that we want the best therapies for our patients, and yet we only have 2 out of 10 or 3 out of 10 in the US and Europe receiving what we think is the best therapy. Why is that? Well, the CAR T-cell Vision is trying to deal with some of these challenges. Many of these are coordination problems where medical professionals, payers, patients, hospital systems, government payers are all viewing their unique part of the challenge, but are not at the same table talking at the same time about these challenges. And therefore, it's a challenge to move the needle if you've got everybody worried about their corner of a problem as opposed to the entire problem together. So the Vision Project's goal is to effectively bring all of the relevant stakeholders into the same room to share that goal of how do we expand access, how do we double the proportion of patients receiving CAR T-cell therapy by the year 2030. We need to do that with shared effort and with intentional work to relieve some of these barriers and let more patients receive this groundbreaking therapy.
So this issue of coordination that you've mentioned a couple of times now, it results also in a lack of access.
Yes.
So can we perhaps go further into the reasons beyond this or because of this lack of coordination that patients just don't get access to CAR T therapy?
Yes. So access can be defined in a number of different ways. Yeah. And one of the most common ways is that there's a lack of knowledge. If you don't know what you don't know, you're not going to be able to receive a therapy. And if a treating physician isn't aware that there is a better option for their patient, they won't refer that patient to a center that does CAR T-cell therapy. Also, a patient, if they lack the knowledge that there's a better option than what they could receive with their local doctor, they may not ask the question of, should I be seen at a CAR T-cell center? Is CAR T-cell right for me? CAR T-cell therapy is still relatively new compared to decades-old standards that have been around since people started their training and people have begun their careers. This is a groundbreaking technology that is established, but it's still new enough that there needs to be more initiatives on education. Another way to define access is in terms of logistical barriers for patients to be able to go to a CAR T-cell center, to travel to a CAR T-cell center. Part of that is a need for financial support, caregiver support, and the resources to be away from home for a time being. The regulations around CAR T-cell therapy requiring an intense monitoring period, we think those hopefully should be relaxed over time to allow some of the financial barriers that are currently preventing some patients from having access to CAR T-cell could be improved. And lastly, making the case that CAR T-cell therapy is worth the effort, so that payers and government systems where there's a control of healthcare from a government system would recognize that this is a transformational benefit that will allow people to go back to their lives, to recover and go back to quality of life and productivity of life, and therefore the cost is worth it as well. And so access is a key word that the CAR T-cell Vision program is trying to tackle by going at all of those different facets of what access means.
Thank you, Jason. So tunneling down into the report, and it's a sort of roadmap, this report.
Yes.
And it's, as I've said, being developed by an independent steering committee, but that steering committee has also been comprised of leadership from top North American and European patient advocacy groups, as well as medical society organizations, academic and community treatment centers, health technology assessment policy and other subject matter experts, and going towards this sort of lack of
what at the same table.
Yes,
at the same
exactly.
Time.
It provides that foundation for all stakeholders together to address these access challenges you've been describing across geographies. So thinking about how that will translate into CAR T Vision's literal, concrete, measurable actions, can you tell us more about that, how that's going to translate?
Yes.
And perhaps give us some details about some of the recommendations from the report.
Absolutely. So the recommendations are online. There is a website for CAR T-cell Vision. So for people who are listening and want full details, it's not hard to find. It's not difficult to find. There's a very detailed, comprehensive, but readable report that's summarizing this comprehensive approach. So some of the main things that are being worked on is what we've already touched on about coordinating the stakeholders to common goals to work together, to bring folks into the same room and realizing that we have a shared goal of helping patients. How can we do that? Well, that common knowledge and that common definition of the goal is very useful to make that into a reality. So part of it is education, part of it is working with patient access groups to share that information with patients, but also to help ensure they're aware of resources that are available to support access to CAR T-cell. And lastly, making sure that there's continued innovation in the research side, that we continue to work to do better. The CAR T-cells we have right now are very important, but we want to make sure that we're continuing to move the field forward, both in terms of access to game-changing technology, but as a field moving our ultimate goal of helping as many people as we can the best treatments as possible. So I'd encourage folks that are interested to go to the website, because there's sort of executive summary, full detail summary. There's an abundance of information available on the CAR T-cell Vision website.
Thank you. And fixing on that moving the field forward thought right now.
Yes.
Again, don't need reminding that we're at ASCO, but for you, Jason, what has been a highlight or a potential showing itself when it comes to research and oncology in the future?
Yeah, ASCO is a wonderful meeting, and it's sometimes overwhelming because of all the incredible things that are shared. Each year there's more advances, and so if someone's a patient or a family member of a patient, know that there are things happening as rapidly as we possibly can to move the field forward. But one thing this year that I think was notable was a poster featuring a novel CAR T-cell clinical trial looking at using a blood test to detect if the cancer is gone or if there's still a micro amount of it left in the blood. If the imaging, the tests we are currently using in the clinic show that the cancer is in remission, but the blood test shows there's a hint of it left over, could we treat patients at that time point with a potentially curative intent therapy like CAR T-cell? Could we improve outcomes? And so there's a trial ongoing now called the ALPHA3 trial, which is randomizing patients to observation or treatment. That's another way that we can expand access to CAR T-cell by increasing the definition of which patients might benefit most from CAR T-cell. Hopefully that research can support this overall effort.
Amazing. Thank you for your time today, Jason. It's been a pleasure.